Good morning and welcome back to my channel. In today's vlog, we're talking about how to speed up your metabolism. So everything you can do if you want to eat more while staying lean. I think this video will be helpful in general, but especially helpful if you feel like you have a really slow metabolism. So you're eating really low calories just to maintain your weight. If you've hit a weight loss or fat loss plateau where your calories are low, but you're just not seeing any progress, or maybe you're like me and you've just finished a fat loss phase and you want to kind of rebuild your metabolism back up afterwards. I'm gonna be sharing recipes, workouts, and all my tips for reverse dieting, which we will get into a little bit later. Let's jump into my first tip, which is weightlifting. Prioritizing weightlifting workouts to help either maintain or build additional muscle is one amazing way to speed up your metabolism. The reason is that muscle is metabolically active, which just basically means that it's needy. So at rest, muscle requires a lot more calories than other tissues in our body. So the more muscle you have on your frame, the higher your kind of basal metabolic rate or maintenance calories is going to be. So yeah, if you have more muscle, you can eat more without gaining any weight, which is incredible. Muscle is also fantastic for our overall health too, so this is kind of just an added bonus. So this morning I did a lower body weightlifting session at home using only dumbbells. This session is actually from my 8-week fitness program called Ignite. If you want to try the first 7 days of the program completely for free, I will leave a link to that down in the description. So let's jump into today's lift. Before I get into my next tip, we need to backtrack a little bit, kind of understand what a slow metabolism really means. When we lose weight or when we decrease our caloric intake for whatever reason, our metabolism actually slows down as a part of our body's defense against starvation. So really cool for survival, not great for eating a lot and staying lean. This is called negative metabolic adaptation. Our metabolism is very complicated, so I'm not going to get into the details today, but the important thing to know is that our bodies can start to do the exact same processes using less energy to help us survive. This is where a reverse diet comes in. Now, reverse dieting isn't going to make sense for everybody, but if you find yourself with a really slow metabolism, maintaining at really low calories, or you're coming out of a calorie deficit or a fat loss phase and you really want to build your metabolism back up, reverse dieting is an incredible tool to be able to slowly increase your calories without gaining any fat, or if you are gaining fat, very, very minimal, because who doesn't want to eat more, right? I mean, like, that's the dream. Today is actually my very first day of my reverse diet. If you're not familiar, here are the basics of what a reverse diet is. Essentially, we are just increasing our calories slowly week over week until we reach our maximum maintenance level. So the most calories that we can eat without gaining or losing any weight. Essentially, during that process, we show our bodies that it's okay, it's fine, we're not starving, there's food available, and slowly over time, our body reverses those negative metabolic adaptations that were actually slowing down our metabolism. If we were to increase our calories significantly one day out of nowhere, it's very likely that we would gain a little bit of weight because our bodies can't just flip a switch and instantly reverse those negative metabolic adaptations, especially if our body has been functioning that way for a while. So here is my exact programming for my reverse diet. First of all, I'm going to share my goals because this actually determines the type of reverse diet that I chose. So I've been in a fat loss phase and a calorie deficit for a little over 2 months now, and my goals are to minimize or avoid fat regain, increase my metabolism so that I can eat more while maintaining my current physique. For those reasons, I'm going to do a little bit of a slower and longer reverse diet. So I'm going to target about a 4% weekly increase in calories. I also just jumped online and did a really quick estimate of my basal metabolic rate, or my maintenance calories, based on my height and weight and some other stats. Using that as an estimate, it looks like it's going to take me anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks to complete this reverse diet. So 4% sounds like a tiny number, which it is, but it's only really going to take a few weeks for me to complete this entire reverse diet. And I think it'll be a really good investment in my metabolism and speeding things back up. Reverse dieting really isn't an exact science, but I've seen people use anywhere from 1% to 15% increases in calories week over week. And depending on what you're looking for and what your goals are, you can choose really anywhere in that range. So for example, if you wanted to reverse diet as quickly as possible back up to maintenance and you weren't worried at all about fat gain, then you might choose a higher percent increase week over week. And if you wanted to minimize as much fat gain as possible, but you were willing to do it more slowly, then you might choose a lower number. So it's really up to you what's going to make the most sense for you and your goals. I'm not going to share my personal calories because I wouldn't want you to compare yourself. It's really very individual, but my calorie increase this week, going from my calorie deficit number and adding that 4% was only like 75 calories. So a little bit anticlimactic. I was like so excited to be out of my calorie deficit phase, but because I'm focusing on this reverse diet and I'm purposefully doing this slow and steady, yeah, it wasn't super thrilling, but 75 calories better than nothing. So I will be enjoying that extra spoonful of peanut butter, not even less than a spoonful of peanut butter. My reverse diet is really just one piece of the puzzle. So let's get into some of my other tips and tricks for speeding up your metabolism. My first tip is eating high protein. This is important for so many reasons. It helps protect against muscle loss. It helps you feel fuller for longer and more satisfied. And because protein is a little bit harder for our body to digest, we can eat more calories when we eat a lot of protein. Now, that is not to say that you should be eating only protein and not have any carbs and fats, because every macronutrient plays an important part in our diet, but it's so helpful to make sure you're getting enough protein, because for every 100 calories of protein you eat, you're only actually netting about 70. So you get a lot more bang for your buck that way. First recipe I'm sharing today is one that I am so obsessed with lately. It's a blue coconut smoothie bowl. For the base, I used a little bit of blue spirulina, mostly just for color because it's gorgeous, but it also has a tiny bit of plant protein in there, which is always nice. I also use the Fairlife whole ultra filtered milk, vanilla whey protein powder, about 20 grams of full fat coconut cream, and I added a little bit of shredded coconut because I love having those pieces like throughout the base. And then I just topped this with some granola, some honey, shredded coconut, and a little bit of frozen mango that I left out to thaw for a few minutes so it wasn't like rock hard. I'm absolutely obsessed with it, so. I thought it would be helpful to go through a little reverse diet example. So let's say that right now you're eating 1,800 calories. You go online and you estimate your maintenance calories should be somewhere around, let's say 2,200. Here is how you could program a reverse diet, increasing your calories slowly week over week. I'm going to do this in a Google sheet, but you certainly could just do this by hand using a calculator or whatever. I just love using spreadsheets. So I'm just going to take my baseline. So in this example, that's 1,800, and I'm going to multiply that by 1.04, which is going to take that number and add 4% to it. And if you just drag that all the way down for whatever length of time it's going to take you to get to whatever your kind of guesstimate is for your maintenance calories, there you have it. The thing about a reverse diet is that it's not an exact science. So basically the way that I'm planning to do it is just continue increasing my calories by that 4% every single week until I start to notice that I am gaining weight. Once I hit that point, that is when I'll stop. That way I'll know my actual like true maintenance calories, because the estimates that you get online are estimates. They're not perfect. And sometimes your true maintenance can be more or less than that value that you get out of the calculator. So I think my reverse diet will take me about 8 weeks based on what I estimate my maintenance to be, but it could be shorter, it could be longer. It's one of those things where you kind of just have to wait and see and monitor. If you notice that you're starting to gain weight consistently, that probably means that you have maxed out your maintenance and you might want to scale it back just a little tiny bit. But yeah, it's kind of just a big experiment, which for me, as someone who loves data and loves science, that is kind of fun. I don't want this to feel too intimidating. You don't have to get fancy with a spreadsheet if you don't want to. You don't have to program this super specifically. If you're just slowly increasing your calories week over week to kind of show your body that everything's okay, that you're not starving, that there is food accessible to you, and that you can kind of reverse those negative metabolic adaptations that were slowing down your metabolism. Okay, I have another nutrition tip similar to the protein one. So kind of how you can eat more food for less calories by eating more fiber and more whole foods. So fiber, first of all, I love for many reasons. There are a lot of health benefits. It's great for gut health, digestion. It helps keep you fuller for longer. But fiber is also difficult for our body to break down. So when you eat high fiber foods, again, you have less net calories overall, so you can eat more of them. And then of course, eating more whole foods. Whole foods are a little bit more difficult for our body to digest. So we burn some calories digesting whole foods, whereas ultra processed foods are easier to digest and our body does not expend as many calories digesting them. So essentially we can just get a lot more bang for our buck if we're eating high protein like we talked about earlier, but also high fiber and lots of whole foods. And like, don't we all just want to eat more while maintaining our physique? Like, I've never once had a day where I'm like, I would love to eat less today. I find those 3 things to be the most important things to focus on for nutrition: protein, fiber, and whole foods. That brings us to our next recipe. So if you didn't know, raspberries and chia seeds are 2 of the highest fiber whole foods of all time. We're gonna be making chocolate raspberry chia bites. I've actually never made these before, so it's kind of dumb to try a recipe for the first time in a vlog, but if you're seeing this clip, that's good news because it means that they turned out good. Because if they turned out bad, I would cut them out of the vlog. I just wanted to share another high protein recipe that I've been obsessed with lately. If you're not into a smoothie bowl right now, this is so good. It is a peanut butter and chocolate yogurt bowl. It is so high protein, low calorie, but seriously tastes so good. I realized yesterday that I have been missing out because the way to take this yogurt to the next level is to melt some chocolate on the top, put it in the fridge so that it hardens, kind of like magic shell on ice cream, and then you can crack into it with a spoon. I've been just throwing chocolate chips on the top, but I think adding the chocolate top is gonna take it to the next level. So let me show you really quickly how I make that, and I make it a little bit lower calorie and higher in protein. Okay, I've got raspberry chia bites in the freezer. I've got peanut butter yogurt in the fridge. I've got some time on my hands while those are setting. So let's talk about my next tip, which is to find ways to increase your NEAT, which stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is just a really fancy term for basically the movement we do outside of exercise. Things like cleaning your house or typing on a keyboard. Like any time that we are moving, it requires energy. Personally, when I am in a calorie deficit, when I'm losing fat, I start to feel really low energy and lethargic, which is pretty normal. But I tend to use that as an excuse to be lazy. And like, I start parking closer to the store, I take the elevator instead of the stairs, you know? I just become a lot less active when I'm in a calorie deficit. So especially now that I'm coming out of that and thinking about how I can increase my metabolism, eat more food while maintaining my physique, staying lean, finding ways to be a little bit more active day to day can have a huge impact on that. Because of course, if you're moving around more, even in small ways, you're burning more calories, which means you can eat more food while maintaining the same physique. And of course, like being active is just good for our overall health and our well-being anyway. I feel good when I'm more active day to day. It is a beautiful day today. It's like 60 degrees. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Winter is almost over. It's almost springtime. I'm so excited. So I'm going to go outside and take a quick walk and take advantage of the weather because it is seriously gorgeous. My last tip for today's vlog is to stop before you're burnt out and exhausted. If you find yourself plateauing, really struggling with your current intake, like knowing that something is wrong and that this is unsustainable, don't wait. Don't push yourself beyond that point. I made that mistake. It did not end well. Trust me, it's so worth it to take the time to invest in your metabolism. Just like any other investment, it's gonna require you to pour time and energy into it before you see the payoff, but I promise you it will pay off big time in the future. I learned this lesson the hard way. The reverse diet and maintenance phase is just as important, if not more important, than the fat loss phase, than the dieting phase. Don't make my same mistake. Don't start yourself into this yo-yo diet cycle where you're losing fat, regaining it, dieting again, going back and forth. Like, it's just genuinely a waste of life force to be constantly focusing on physique like that, at least in my experience. I'm just like, I don't have time for this. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. I'd be happy to chat. I know this can feel like a complicated topic, but at the end of the day, even taking small steps, like picking one of the things that I talked about in this video and implementing that into your routine can have a big impact on your metabolism, especially if you're able to like slowly layer these things over time. At least that's my plan, because I am definitely not perfect at any of these things, and it's something I'm going to be focusing on over the next few months. I'm going to continue documenting my experience and my learnings and my journey with my reverse diet and maintaining my physique and how I'm able to do that. So if you want to see that, make sure to subscribe. I upload new videos every week. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.